Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. So I say good morning. Again, good morning and welcome. My name is Deborah Amwewua, and I'm the Manager for Environmental and Sustainability Solutions here at Clean Earth. And for today, I'm going to be the moderator for our webinar, The Reason Why We Are All Gathered Here Today. We here at CleanEd are very delighted to have you join us for our webinar on managing environmental and social risks in project development for financing. The conversation, as you will all agree, is a timely one because addressing ENS risks is not just about compliance, but in today's market, it literally translates into attracting and unlocking sustainable financing, strengthening project credibility, and building resilience. And that is why it gladdens my heart personally and the hearts of all colleagues from Clean Earth here on this call that you've all taken the time to join this webinar as we get to share insights, we get to participate collaboratively, and we get to learn one thing or the other on how we can strengthen our projects and our businesses, causing them to be much more bankable than they currently are. So for today, I'm not going to take much of the spotlight. We are going to go straight to business. But before that, if you were asked what Clean Earth is, if you were asked to describe the Clean Earth people, one way or the other, perhaps you are wondering or you may not know exactly what to say we do or we are about. So we are going to take a very, very short excerpt of video from our Chief Executive Officer, Echo Archer himself, telling you what Clean Earth is about. And so if you are asked anywhere, you'd be able to at least give a succinct answer on what Clean Earth is. Let's look at the video now.
Welcome to Clean Earth. My name is Echo Archer and I'm the Chief Executive Officer over here. I'm excited about the work we're doing for industrial clients and the impact we're making on society. In the last 2.5 years, we have evolved from the business that started some 27 years ago. Today, we're truly a clean technology company and delivering a lot of services around sustainability and the environment. Whether you have needs around water, clean energy, ESG, or broadly the environment, we are the one-stop shop that you can come to get those issues addressed. We're excited about the team we have put in place, strong diversity, a lot of women over here leading a lot of projects, and a lot of individuals who have come out of universities and colleges right here in Ghana and bringing services that are world-class that can be found anywhere on the continent. What we want to see is that our clients, first of all, are sustainable, they're doing a responsible production, and more importantly, they are profitable. So I invite you to visit our website, www.cleanearth.africa. You can find our email and our contact telephone numbers on there or anywhere on the internet. Thank you very much, and I invite you to be part of the work that Clean Earth is doing, which is improving the quality of life and safeguarding the planet.
Thank you so much, technical team, and thank you, Chief Executive, for that very brief but succinct description of what Clean Earth does. So from this webinar, at least if you are asked what Clean Earth is about, you know that we're delivering and we are literally leading the charge in these areas by delivering solutions to clients covering environmental and sustainability, covering clean energy integration, as well as water and wastewater treatment systems, especially in the design, conceptualization, implementation, and optimization of effluent treatment plants. Next time, we would all be able to speak to what Clean Earth is and what Clean Earth does. But then today, we are all here to understand why, how, what to do to manage environmental and social risks in our projects, in our businesses, so that we remain bankable in today's market share. And for this, as the communication has gone out, you all know that we are having none other than the expert himself, Kobina Otu Okain, to lead us through today's webinar. But before we go on, I would like to give a brief background of who Kobina is and why he should be the one you should be listening to on this particular topic. As a qualified environmental and social risk management specialist, Kobina has implemented environmental and social management systems at both CalBank PLC and the Development Bank of Ghana itself. Kobina's expertise includes conducting ecological and socio-economic surveys, risk assessment, and impact analysis. He holds a certificate as an ISO 14001 lead implementer and an environmental and social framework specialist certified by the World Bank themselves. In his current role as an environmental specialist at the World Bank, Kobina manages the environmental and social accountability of numerous projects across varied sectors. So most likely, whatever sector you are in as you're on this webinar, Kobina is overseeing projects in that area. He has played a significant role in climate mitigation and adaptation efforts, including the successful implementation of the Ghana Emissions Reduction Program and other initiatives. His previous experiences include roles at the Ministry of Finance, at CalBank, at the Center for Environment and Health Research and Training CET, even here at CleanEarth, where he coordinated environmental assessments and compliance monitoring for major projects. Kobina has a robust understanding of environmental, social, and governance principles, and he maintains a demonstrable ability to develop and implement effective management systems. He's passionate about environmental and social governance and also committed to promoting sustainable development. As a person, Kobina adopts a collaborative work approach, and believes in strong communication and meaningful stakeholder engagement. And because of this, he is continually aspiring for excellence. Now, if you're having someone like this be the keynote speaker for today's webinar, then you know that you can expect nothing but excellence when it comes to managing E&S risks in project development for financing from today. Again, we'll just go straight into business. So let us hear from Kobina himself.
Hello, good morning, guys. I'm grateful to be on this platform. The interest shown has been great. So you know what I did? Seeing how widely publicized this was going on, I decided to bring a whole squad. So I have my seniors on the call. I have my colleagues on the call. So every question that comes that is above me, I'm already covered. So I can assure you that we're going to have an interesting discussion. You would, at the end, be able to identify with several aspects of what I'm going to be saying, because as they say, there's nothing new under the sun. What I would seek to do is to try and just help you appreciate what investors, what financiers are excited about, and how you are able to demonstrate this to people you are hoping to get some finance from. So basically, that's what I seek to do in the next 30 minutes. And then we can have a long discussion. But being a teacher, the teacher in me doesn't allow me to be a good speaker. So don't be surprised if at any point in my delivery, I call on somebody on the call, anybody on the call, just to share some ideas or to help us clarify certain issues. So I look forward to a very engaging discussion, and I have not come to preach, even though I'm an ESG evangelist. I am here to share ideas. I'm here to listen to the many experiences that we have on this call and to help the younger ones as well. You know, maybe Debbie, you could actually share the brief stats that you have on those who have registered for this call. We have a good number of senior managers on the call. So this is not going to be a basic class. And we also have quite a number of young professionals. So Debbie, if you could just come in with that so that we are all guided in how we go about supporting each other. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Kobina. And Kobina is right. We actually have over 150 people joining us. We already have more than 63 on call right now. The rest are joining in as and when. And out of this number, over 85% are in mid-level to senior management roles. And when I say senior management, it includes chief executive officers, chief finance officers, executive directors, board members even, and board chairpersons. Again, there are more than 60% of us on this call, at least in fields related to ENS, and there are 30% minimum in senior finance level roles. It tells you the great expectations that we have for colleagues on this call. It also lets you know that indeed the finance people are watching, and we are here to understand what it is they expect in our projects, in our businesses, as long as the new most potent risk is concerned, ENS. But then that is not all. There is also a good fraction of us who are in junior level positions. And so Kobina, being the expert that he is, has made sure that the delivery would be able to cover each and every person. So I would take this opportunity to encourage you at any point in time, especially when we open the room for questions and answers, for interjections, for sharing ideas or perspectives, I would encourage you to, as much as possible, speak up, share where you think you're standing from, share or ask questions on what you need better clarity on, and then we are all going to have a successful time. Thank you.
All right, so as soon as we have the screen or the slides rolling, we'll start our engagement. Thank you. So I have a number of slides. These slides are basically pointers in most cases. In a few cases, they are you would have a lot of notes on a particular slide. They are not meant to be read in this presentation. They are meant to guide, the younger ones, when we finally get to share this presentation. So there are times I would be seen to be spending a lot of time on particular slides. There are a few slides that we will spend just seconds on. So don't worry, we would try and do this in a good time so we can have a wonderful discussion. So from the stats that Debbie shared, you realize that there are a number of us on this call who are already involved in the science of managing environmental and social risk. In this presentation, we seek not only to make references to the science, we also want to be able to relate them to the business side. What's the business, case for having to manage environmental and social risks in any business, in any financial institution. So there are a number of financial institutions on this call. There are business owners on this call. So I would, as much as possible, try to look at all the perspectives. Why do you need to manage your environmental and social risks? And I do know that, as Debbie said, one main thing would be compliance. In fact, nobody wants to be found wanted or found short when it comes to compliance or when it comes to the law. Of course, there are always a few instances where you would have people who cannot really care much about what the law says. But I do know that everybody on this call cares a lot about the law, cares a lot about the regulations, cares a lot about the requirements, cares about the reputational risks associated with having to be found to be non-compliant in one aspect of your business or the other. There are actually those who argue that when it comes to standards, when it comes to requirements, there is no one company that is 100% compliant. I seem to agree with that kind of notion, because indeed, in most instances, regulators are interested in your willingness and your ability to demonstrate that you are interested in aligning or interested in complying with what is required of you. But we do know that even for your very top-notch companies, especially those in the mining sector, oil and gas, who cannot afford not to be non-compliant, even in those sectors, sometimes, there's one area of a weakness or the other. And so you would see that there's always some kind of a continuous due diligence or monitoring or some kind of an evaluation in one aspect of a process, or in this case, if it's a product that is offered by a financial institution, there are always, as the teachers would always say when we're in primary school, there's always room for improvement. So yes, we are here to learn, and not to say that, we expect that everybody would be perfect. So can we please move to the next slide? Yeah, so a bit of time here. Let's just see why this topic even became necessary in the first place. So we are told of a period where we refer to as the early drivers. I tried putting in the chat. It didn't work out too well. In my office, we are encouraged to use AI as much as possible. So we built a lot of capacity trying to do things with a number of tools that have been made available. But as you can see from my slide, the picture on the left or the chart on the left doesn't 100% align with the notes that I had put in the table. But I mean, it's all good. So I know there are AI gurus on this call who probably would help me put this in a better shape another time. So the US passed a comprehensive environmental response, compensation, and liability act known as the CERCLA. And in this act, what they sought to do was to hold banks responsible for client environmental pollution and remediation costs. And then subsequently, there was this growing environmental awareness where, you had banks recognizing the risks and opportunities posed by environmental impact. And this is a period where the concern was more about environmental impact. I mean, as we go on, you would realize the good work that has been done by most DFIs, notably the IFC and the World Bank, in terms of adding in a lot of requirements or standards when it comes to the social aspect. But trust me, in most organizations, in most countries, we tend to be more biased towards the environment. But I mean, later on, we get to understand why. There's no way we can underestimate the contribution of the social. In fact, I always say that it's so easy and straightforward to manage environmental issues. The standards are known. The biodiversity exists. Today, I do an assessment. I know what I expect to see. They don't give you problems, but trust me, go and deal with a community that's been engaged and records have been captured. Tomorrow, another person goes to engage or to try and do some kind of a due diligence, and they'll be singing a different story, especially in communities. Forgive me if you're from the cocoa farming community, but trust me, because of the goodies they do get from time to time, sometimes you have people finding themselves, saying things that are not necessarily the situation on the ground, just because they hope that by saying what they are saying, they will get more support from a new NGO or from some new DFI or some other organization. So managing social issues, as I know you would all agree with, is not straightforward. It's a very difficult thing. And that's why we don't joke with the social aspect. For those of us who are environmental specialists, we don't have a problem at all. So now it got to the 90s where this now became a norm, a global norm. The MDBs, your multilateral development banks, began to emulate what had been done during the early drivers period. So the likes of the World Bank came up with their operational safeguard policies. And a few years ago, 2018, we had these operational safeguard policies transformed into what we call the environmental and social standards, taking over from the operational safeguard policies. And to be fair, I mean, the environmental and social standards benefited a lot from IFC's performance standards. So if you are very knowledgeable of the IFC performance standards, our environmental and social standards won't be any different. Recently, AFDB also revised its integrated safeguard systems, and they took a lot of, inspiration from what IFC had done. So we know, as a bank staff, please don't quote me anywhere, I do know that we benefited a lot from the IFC. Of course, they are brothers. They are the private sector wing of the World Bank Group. So if we learn from them, it's all for the better. Then we found ourselves in the 2010s to the present time where you had the likes of EIB and other organizations developing very detailed environmental and social standards. If you ever had the opportunity to work with the EIB standards, I mean, it's some impressive work. And now the focus is on sustainability. And I know sustainability is another interesting area, but that's not what we seek to do. Even though I'll quickly add that your ability to identify, assess, manage, and monitor environmental and social risks is a critical component of the bigger sustainability concept, but we would not go there because I'm sure that there's a lot we want to do. So let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is basically the main agenda. So we move on to the next slide. Understanding environmental and social risks. Yes, and so there's the right slide. So I was just wondering, so we are working from the same the same concept. So what do we mean by an environmental risk? I know my bankers on this call, most of whom are into risk management, understand these things even probably better than I do. We do know that basically when you talk about risks, you are talking about the probability, right? You're talking about the potential. Those of us in environmental impact assessment always are talking about potential. So in our document, we are always identifying potential risks. So you would find impact assessment practitioners always talking about potential risks. And then in the assessment or evaluation of the risks, we are then now able to narrow down to what we call significant risk. And it is these risks that you seek to mitigate. I mean, of course, there's a mitigation hierarchy that all the MDBs would, or the IFIs would talk about. So where it's possible to avoid, you want to avoid the risk. Where it's possible to minimize or reduce, you want to do that. And there are a lot of mechanisms that enable us to do that. Where it's impossible to reduce or to minimize, you want to mitigate. Where you're unable to mitigate, you want to offset. And so that's where the discussions on carbon offset, biodiversity offset, all come into play. So per the bank's environmental and social standards, we have such a high, set of requirements before we would allow some offset on projects that we finance, because we do know how offsets are difficult to design and to manage for you to be able to achieve what it is that you seek to achieve. So we have a very strict set of criteria, and in most cases we don't finance offset. We would not do it. If you have to avoid the project and do something that doesn't create trouble for anybody, for any community or that kind of thing. But of course, I also do know there are biodiversity offset specialists, there are carbon offset specialists that can actually, take you through some of these activities. But by philosophy, the bank believes in reducing the worst forms of poverty and boosting shared prosperity. So if you look at most of our projects that we do here, currently we have over 20 active projects that are going on. If you look at them, most of these projects are meant to reduce the worst forms of poverty. So what that means is that we would not do a project that sinks a high fraction of the money into mitigating a project when we seek to have much of the funds going into doing the things that would that would serve or that would bring about development to the people on the ground. So it's not that we are risk averse. We leave that for our IFC counterparts. They can afford to do, because they do things purely for profit. They are I mean, basically that's what it is. They are set up to deal with private sector, to go into such risky areas and to make profit. But we as the bank, are from a different philosophy. Ours is to work through government institutions, get on the ground to bring about, transformational, that's one word we like to use a lot, transformational change to people on the ground. So we would usually not do things that do not help us to achieve that objective. So when we talk about environmental risks, there's a wide scope that we can look at, but basically we are saying that anything that can cause harm to an ecosystem, to property, to the economy, to the human health, in most definitions that you would look at, they would basically just restrict themselves to the biophysical environment. But in the broad concept of environmental risk, it goes beyond just the biophysical. We are looking at even risks to human health arising from environmental sources or originating from environmental sources. We're looking at things like pollution, emissions that we all talk about. Who suffers most from the effect of pollution? It's people. So when you talk about environmental risks, you're looking at human health as well, because there are those things that originate from an environmental source but do impact humans. Same with social sources that also impact human. But of course, we also do know environmental risks to property, and I'm sure this is something we can all appreciate. Was it last year or last 2 years when the VRA, for those on the call, because I see a number of colleague Nigerians who are on the call. So in Ghana there was Akosombo Dam, the bank's first investment in Ghana. In fact, the very first loan that the World Bank gave to Ghana was to build the Akosombo Dam, which for many years was our number one source of power. Our number one source of power. These days, of course, with the effect of climate change and all of that, we are not getting the necessary water levels to run all the turbines that do exist there. And so now we've had to turn to a lot of, other sources of power. And but basically, the story I wanted to share was about what had happened when VRA had to spill because they had an overflow and all of that. And we all know the consequences of the spillage that happened, right? So environmental risks also do impact property. We know the amount of properties that were lost to that spillage. And we know that even today as we speak, there are a number of people who are affected whose lives have never been the same again. So these things are important. Of course, then there are those from the natural causes, that I would not want to dwell on. But basically, we are saying that these risks, they pose dangers such as pollution, climate change, loss of biodiversity, and of course, we've seen our natural resources and forests being depleted at a degree that we've never seen before. So it is important that we understand these risks as owners of businesses, as financial institutions who are, bankrolling such activities. It's important that we have a general, understanding of some of these risks. Please let's move on to the next slide. So here, these are pictures of Apieti in the Western region. If this were a class, I would have wished to just call somebody in to tell us what they remember about Apieti. Anybody who feels led and doesn't mind just telling us something small about what happened at Apieti in the Western region.
Yes, Kobina, I think it's allowed, right? Any volunteer tell us what they remember about Apieti.
And please tell them that if they don't volunteer, I know almost everybody on the call, I'll call them by name.
That's all. Just raise your hand and then you unmute yourself to speak. So we don't have too many people speaking at the same time. Sebastian Apram, you want to speak? Okay, James Deku, your hand is up. Please go on.
Well, I think basically what I can remember in regard to that incident was I think a gas vehicle got exploded, and then the impact destroyed a lot of houses, livelihoods, and that destruction was serious. Basically, that's what I can. Thank you.
Thank you, James. That's almost 100%. So what led to the explosion was actually explosives for the mining industry that were being conveyed from one point to another, from the manufacturing plant to the mining site. And for those of you in mining, you guys, you are the seniors in this field. There exist standard operational procedures for everything. Practically everything you think of, there's a procedure you need to follow. While I may not want to be conclusive on anything, it was obvious that protocol was not followed through. That's what we have heard from the reports that were done and from the investigations that were done and all of that. But basically, just to say that when the proper mining companies are even conveying cyanide from the port to the mining site, they go by an established protocol because they know that the risk involved is so high that they cannot afford to have anything go wrong during just the transport. I'm not even talking about when cyanide has arrived on site and they are not going to look at how they even to handle, to store, to use, to dispose. I'm not even looking at all those stages yet. I'm just talking about just the transporting. And even for that, there is an international cyanide management code that mining companies sign onto. They are audited periodically. They get taken off when they are not, they are not matching the minimum compliance requirements, and they get back onto the register or onto the list when they have been able to, implement any corrective measures. So this is a serious business. But of course, we would come to know later also that everything we are talking about here is relative. Everything we're talking about here must be proportionate, must be commensurate. So if a mining company is doing that, would I necessarily have to do that if the nature of the good that I transport is not of the explosive type and probably is a product that just doesn't create any issues? So I would be getting on to an area where for a typical financial institution, their first question is, do you as a client or a potential investee, do you even understand the nature and the scope of the risks that are associated with your business? So that is always the first question. And under that, there's so many things we can talk about. And then the second, for me, most important question they also would want to find or establish is your ability to manage those risks. So appreciation of the risks, and then your capacity or ability to manage the risks. And in any due diligence exercise that would be done by any DFI, by any financial institution, this is basically all they would be asking. But of course, in asking this question, or to help them establish answers to these questions, it would come with several other elements, several other moving parts that would help them, arrive at some answers to those two main questions. So let's continue. So for most international institutions, when it comes to the social risks, we are not just looking at the ones that we are very familiar with. We are not just looking at community impact. We're also looking at labor rights. We are looking at safety. And it's sad that the organization that's supposed to be pushing the issue of occupational health and safety in this country is one of the most under-resourced. So in fact, when I was at CalBank and I had to deal with clients, in most cases, they would produce EPA permits, they would produce EPA license, they would produce their report, they would produce, for clients who were in the oil retail sector, they would produce their NPA licenses. And depending on the scope of the activities, for some who only retail, they will produce the license that allows them to retail. They will produce, for those who own BRVs, and by BRVs, I mean bulk road vehicles, they would produce an NPA license for their BRVs for those who had storage facilities. And so you call them depots, right? They would have licenses covering their depots. So that's also another thing to look at later when we are applying the principle. So if you're a financial institution and you're dealing with an oil retailer, you are not setting the same set of requirements for every oil retailer, because oil retailers come in shapes and sizes. Some only do the retail, some own BRVs. So then you can request of them to see their BRV licenses and the conditions that come with it. Some come with beyond the BRVs, they have the depots. So you also want to see the NPA licenses covering the depots. So like I said, when I was at CalBank, you have clients producing all these documents, right? But in most cases, they didn't even realize, or they didn't even know that they needed a certificate of registration from the Department of Factories Inspectorate. But it just happens that they are one of the most under-resourced institutions, so somehow people conveniently forget about them. But trust me, if they had all the resources, your office must have a certificate of registration from the DFI, from the Department of Factories Inspectorate. So I'm no more talking about the development financial institutions. I'm talking about the Department of Factories Inspectorate. For offices, your office that you are sitting in, please ask yourself whether that office is covered by a certificate of registration from DFI. In most cases, we don't worry about them. But if you have time, just take notes and read about the Factories, Offices and Shops Act, and you would see the scope of that act. That act is what establishes the Department of Factories Inspectorate, and you realize that even for your construction site, the act defines it as an office. So your construction site must not only have the licenses and permits from all those wonderful agencies you already work with, you must also register with the Department of Factories Inspectorate. So, I mean, just using the opportunity to talk about the work they do so that we don't leave them out in our planning and in the work that we do. So labor issues are very important, and a significant component of labor issues is occupational health and safety. I know when it comes to the issues of the nature of the contracts that cover an employer and an employee, or an employer and contract workers and all of that. I know these are things that we are doing quite well with. I've had opportunity to review a number of documents from a number of companies, and I know that when it comes to their HR policies, they are doing some good job. The only challenge has been with smaller organizations, I mean, let me just say the MSMEs or the SMEs, where, usually you have a relative who is supporting an uncle or the parent. And so what really is practical, right? Am I expecting that there would be, a parent would sign a contract with a son or a daughter who is of age first, because we are also interested in issues of, child labor and all of that. And anytime issues of child labor come up, we are basically looking at issues around the nature of the work that is done. We are looking at the duration, and then we are looking at, there's another element, the age as well. So yes, in our Ghana laws, and even in the World Bank ESS2 requirement, same with the PS2 requirement, while everybody agrees that when it comes to proper employment, you must be 18 and above, even in our international conventions, we allow for what we call light work. So I think in Ghana, it's 15, in the ESF, it's 16, but whichever one is more stringent, we allow that to happen. So basically to say that, yes, it's important that we are able to properly delineate what issues we are looking at. So what would be right for one company may be different for another company. That's why I'm just speaking broadly to these things, so that you know what is material to you, right? What is more important to you. Then, of course, we are very interested in preserving cultural heritage as part of managing social risks. So we are interested in issues of tangible cultural heritage, and tangible, and all those things. People and their beliefs, and how much they attach, how much importance they attach to certain beliefs, certain artifacts, certain natural trees or natural occurrences and all of that. So all these things become very important if you want to identify social risks in project context. Please let's move to the next slide. So this also we would remember a few years ago one of the franchises that was run by Melcom. So I think this was somewhere around Achimot. So you see the before picture and the after picture. So we all know what happened. For many days, the number of people were trapped under the rubble, and the number who died as a result, and all of that. It was a very difficult period in our lives as a country. And so just to say that on the bank side, when we want to be involved in such a thing, that's where we would want to see all the technical studies that you've done. So sometimes people think we are a bit over elaborate. No, it's just to satisfy ourselves that the right things are being done. That is not to say that even when you've done all the right things, things don't happen. Things happen, and that's how come issues of emergency preparedness and response will come in, and all of that. So all these questions I'm asking will form part of any financial institution's due diligence process, depending on what is applicable to you. So we do know that as a consequence, legal liabilities come in. The Apieti instance, I know the company that was involved really had to pay a lot. We all know about BP. BP had to pay billions of dollars as penalty, civil penalty, for Clean Water Act violations. They had to pay more billions in criminal fines. They had to pay for private claims. They had to pay for settlement. So much went into this particular issue that happened. And I'm sure everybody on this call would know about the BP oil spill many, many years ago. Next slide, please. So how then do we conduct risk assessment and due diligence? So I'm just going to make things simple here. And then later on, when we're having the discussions, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who can fill in. As I said, I know a number of finance people on the call who do this already. And so we will try and get our owners of companies, and then also young practitioners, to understand some of these requirements. So there's always a screening process. So the project must undergo screening, so we can identify the potential ENX risks, and then we must categorize the risks. Then beyond the categorizing the risks, we must conduct the assessment and identify the mitigation. This is your normal process anyway. So for those of us who are consultants who already do ESIAs, we know we follow a similar structure. Financial institutions conducting due diligence on potential investee companies follow a similar structure, except that we have different names at different times for what we're doing. So for projects that are under preparation, you may be doing this and you'll be calling it an environmental impact assessment, the Ghana terminology. Internationally, they've introduced the S, so we can see that they're also interested in the S. I mean, they do understand that in Ghana, we define environment to cover social as well. But most MDBs are interested in the S showing up because they want to tell you that they are even more interested in the S than in the E, because I mean, historically, we've always done the E. The S has always not been well done. So the idea is pay attention to the S as well. In Ghana, you may be required to do a preliminary environmental assessment based on the scope and the nature of the undertaking, or the nature of the project that is involved. And for those of us who are not aware, so we have schedules attached to the LI 1652. There's a schedule 1. And you would see different sectors. You see different sectors and different examples of undertakings that could happen under each sector, and the kind of requirements that might be made of you. So Schedule 1 is a list of projects that require registration with the EPA. Schedule 2 is what you call the EIA mandatory project. So please just download that document if you've never seen it, and it will give you a good idea of the different types of projects and what may be required under Ghanaian law. For those of us who have been doing a bit of, for my international colleagues, I know you have a lot of experience with the IFC performance standards, and they also have a categorization scheme for projects. And depending on what the category is, it tells you what kind of assessment would be required and all of that. So it's the same idea. I would not go into the categorization. If there's a question much later on and somebody's interested, we could do that. But other than that, that's just the general thing I wanted to say about the risk categorization. So basically, categorizing your risks helps you to determine the scope and the depth of assessment that you require, as well as the amount of resources that you need to devote to managing such a project. So basically, that's why risk categorization is very important. In fact, even in some of these international banks where we all work with, then the risk level of a project may determine even the competence or the level of competence of the specialists who must be assigned to it. So these things help in planning, and it's the planning process we're looking at. Next slide, please. So which tools and frameworks are available for us to undertake some of these assessments? So you have these international frameworks. I think I've made a lot of references to them already, so I'll not mention them, but I'm sure a lot of you on this call are very familiar with IFC performance standards. And I know for most of my senior consultants on this call, they're also very familiar, not just with the IFC, but also with the World Bank standards. And of course, I would believe that a few of us may have worked with EIB standards, because we don't tend to get a lot of their projects in the market, but they also have some wonderful standards. And of course, AFDB, our own AFDB has its integrated safeguard system. So in terms of structured risk assessment, we're referring to those assessments where you are evaluating potential risks using systematic approaches. So let's not just jump straight to the ESIs that we are all comfortable with. The ESIs, the LMPs, the cultural hazard management plan, or is it cultural heritage, your occupational health and safety. All those things are structured risk assessment. But I what I've seen from practice is that we tend to be very okay. We are quite big on that high level of structured risk assessment. But there are those that we need to be doing as part of our operations. So I'm going beyond the project to a running project, an operation. There are several things we should be able to do as environmental and social managers. So I know for those of us in occupational health and safety, they are quite good with some of these things. They have SOPs for everything. And you see the beauty about this. They don't assume that they've been working with these standards for so many years. They don't assume. Whenever there is an activity to be done, they will do a hazard assessment. They will do, in some industries, they may call it a HAZOP. They will do a HACCP. They will do, in fact, some institution I visited, they have a nice name for it. Takes 5, some nice names for it. But basically a process, as I said, that is systematic. And that is what makes that assessment structured. It is a process that, eliminates element of I know already. I've been doing this for years. I understand these rates. So there's no point to do this. In fact, there have been several project sites I've had opportunity to visit, and you realize that beyond the bigger frameworks they prepared, in terms of what they need to help them operationalize the ESIs and the ESMPs and all of that, they lack very much in these things. And for me, it's a big opportunity for people on this call. If we can just go beyond the ESIs and the rest and help people, help agencies, help companies undertake some of these on the job, assessments for different activities and help them develop, measures or plans that enable them to do this and do it well. I think there's a lot of work there that we probably have not seen. So, consultants, please, that is an area to look at. Now, of course, I've already made mention of some of these assessment tools that we can employ. And so, please, let's move on. One critical aspect of what we do as part of managing environmental and social risks is this. The point I would make here, because everybody knows about stakeholder engagement and consultation, the only point, I'll try and finish this in 5 minutes. I see the time, I haven't managed time well, because I want us to have a lot more discussion. So stakeholder engagement and consultation, I know sometimes it gets monotonous. Some people will tell you that there's stakeholder engagement fatigue. And so there are times consultants will just sit by their tables and generate the issues, because any consultant worth your salt, if you've done projects across sectors, you should know what to expect. It's not everything that you have to go to the field. I hope you agree with me. No, that is not it. The essence of doing this is the value the process gives you. It is not, we are only not interested in the outcomes, because we know a very good consultant can just put some wonderful issues together and even articulate them much better than the people that would have been consulted. But let's remember that everything we're talking about here is about the process. It's about the value the process gives you, the value the process gives the project, and the value the process contributes to sustainability of the project. So it's not just the outcomes we're interested in. And of course, it's not just the documentation, even though you cannot prove you've done the work when we cannot see documentation. And the only way to show that you have the only way to prove that you have gone through that process is to document. So yes, we might be asking for so many documentations and all of that. It's not that we want to stress you. It's just that we want to see how much value you've been able to add to the project through the process. So let's remember that it's the process we are interested in, all right? So that was what I was going to say about stakeholder engagement and consultation. Let me also say that the other thing I want to say about stakeholder engagement is something I'd like to say, which is building high expectations. And so there's always been that risk of managing unmet expectations. I've been on projects where people had huge expectations, community people had huge expectations, and somehow they were never going to be met, because somehow a consultant or a practitioner or the company went saying some nice things, building castles in the air, right? Just so they could get their social license. But no, I think that I always say that we must be honest with the process. We must be honest with the process. When we are honest with the process, we would help the communities and our stakeholders know what is possible under the project. Once they know what is possible under the project, they would know what to expect of you. The expectations will be measured. And then you would even find that they are happier to support you to, meet your project objectives. So let's be honest, let's be transparent. And so I always want to refer to, so there are standards when it comes to stakeholder engagement beyond what the World Bank will say, beyond what the IFC will say, beyond what other MDBs will say. So if those of you are making notes, you can read on the International Association for Public Participation. They have a definition for stakeholder engagement, and they have it in levels that excite me. They talk about that level where you are basically informing. You are just giving information. So there's no opportunity to add value to the process. They are talking about consult. They are talking about another level called participate. They are talking about, I've forgotten the fourth level, but the highest level of stakeholder engagement is empower,
where you are empowering stakeholders. You are giving them adequate information, you are explaining things to them, you are getting them involved in the process so they can inform project design, so that the design and the implementation of whatever that you have sat in your office to envisage can be done and done with their involvement. And that is what contributes to sustainability. It's not just giving me information. So you gave me information, okay, I have received it, but there was no opportunity for me to share any ideas. So then that becomes a problem. So as I said, just read on this. Very interesting. IAPP, International Association for Public Participation. They have some wonderful documents on stakeholder engagement. Next slide, please. Sorry about the timing. It's 11. It's 11. It's 11. So mitigation strategies and action plans. I think yes. So for every risk that you have assessed and identified and deemed significant, you need to mitigate. And in this whole mitigation process, there may be in some instances where there might be some residual impact. So where there are residual impacts, how are you going to manage them? And so the other things, the other dimensions, there are times you may even have to look at not just mitigating what you intend to put in place, you're also looking at other similar activities within that neighborhood and trying to do something that, addresses impact or risks from similar industries around. So that's where you talk about cumulative impact assessment. So there are a lot of things that I'm sure in the near future we can look at individually. Today, we just want to have a broader understanding. So, linking it to what we are saying, if I was an investor or an MDB or a DFI and I wanted to invest in a company which has some of the CEOs on this call, or in a financial institution which has most of its ESG people on this call, these are things I'll be looking at. So, I request for your document. It is that document that I would review to see what has been covered, and it is the review of those documents and some one-on-one engagement with your officers that would help us understand your appreciation of the risks involved and your capacity to manage them. So it is these things we're talking about. So I would take a document on maybe a stakeholder engagement that was done on a particular project, and you want to understand, you do a review to understand what was the matrix, what kind of matrix was developed to identify the stakeholders, which of them had a high influence, which of them could unmake the project, which of them have a low influence. And so for those of you already doing stakeholder engagement, and for those of you who are now learning, there's something about interest influence matrix. Every stakeholder has an interest and has an influence. That influence or interest may be low or high. So it is that matrix that would help you identify those who really need to be engaged on any project, and so you can engage them and use the outcomes to finalize whatever you need to do. So it's just one of those things. So, and I'm sure there are people on this call who would agree with me that sometimes as consultants we think we know the mitigation measures already, but you'd agree with me that in some of the engagements we've had with communities, sometimes they come up with the best of mitigation measures. They come up with wonderful measures that you never really ever thought of. That is why we stress that you must engage. And that engagement must be meaningful. If you are talking about World Bank standards, if you are talking about IC standards, they'll talk about ICP. It must be informed. What do they call it? Informed consultation and participation. ICP. So that whole process must be so informed that you can get the best out of the process, right? And that's why for us we always stressing on the social aspect, because if you do them well, the environmental things will just be a natural course of they'll just take their natural course. You would not have to do too much with the environment aspect when you already know you've done your water pollution test, you already know the standards, you know what is required, you did the test at this point in time, and if you did probably just one set of results you bring to me, I may be able to make an argument that, well, you took only one set of samples at a particular time, and because of that, it may not be representative enough. And maybe there is no good basis for you to compare with WHO effluent standards. So these are things that for environmentalists, I think we don't have too much of a problem. But the social bit, you must be deliberate. You must be deliberate to engage them. And even, of course, in Nigeria, in Ghana, we don't have indigenous people per the definition of the World Bank or the IFC. But in other countries where they have indigenous groups, we talk about FPIC. The process, the stakeholder engagement process must be free, it must be prior, it must be informed, there must be consent, right? So there are so many things that can guide us in doing something wonderful. Please move on, please move on, please move on. So how do we now integrate risk management into project planning? Okay, please move on because I know some of the questions will cover that. So let me not waste all the time. Please move on to the next. So adaptive management, yes, that's important. Adaptive management is important, just as it suggests. We want to see, and so that's why if you're an FI, if you're a financial institution, and at one point of due diligence, myself as an IFC came and did due diligence. You gave me some wonderful document on a client that you are dealing with and using part of my money to finance. I saw wonderful document. I was happy. When I come the next time, I'm not just expecting those all sets of documents. I'm expecting what kind of the outcome of the monitoring you've done and what the outcomes were and whether there was any need to adopt any new measure. And that's what we mean by adaptive management. We do not expect that things that are agreed on from day one should be the same things. That things change, elements change, factors change. And we want to see that as a financial institution, you have the right officers following up on these changes, just as you would have them follow up on credit risk, just as you would have them follow up on all the other kinds of risks that a financial institution will be interested in. Next slide, please. Next slide, next slide, next slide. So role of financing, okay. Of an investor. Okay, so I think the next few slides that we have, I have touched them, I've touched upon them indirectly, but not exhaustively. So I would want to end here because I'm sorry I went beyond 11 o'clock. Let's use the rest of the time to have a discussion. I mean, as I said, there are very experienced people also on the call. So please, if you have a contribution, we are happy to receive the contribution. Over to you, Deborah, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Kobina. Thank you so much. I see too many hands clapping already. This has been very informative, insightful. It's literally given us directions and actionable insights on what to do as business owners, as project developers, as financiers, even as investors who want to make sure that their finances are flowing in the right direction for businesses. Our time is fast spent, so I'm not even going to talk about my summary, but immediately open the floor for questions and answers, clarifications, or even contributions so that the webinar is going to be as informative as it's supposed to be. Kindly just lift your hands and then we would mention you one after the other to ask your questions. Technical team, please enable them to be able to unmute. And we have the first question from Emmanuel Oboni. I see your hand up.
Hello, Kobina and Deborah.
Hello, Emmanuel.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you for the insightful discussion. And then I'm an environmental scientist by profession. Yeah, I see Debbie. Debbie is actually my mate from KUST. Hi, Debbie.
Wow.
And so, in fact, I am a bit academic. It's just recent times that, upon completion of my master's, any job that I've tried to apply, it's highly related with ESG. And I keep on asking myself, what is this ESG? So I am actually developing an interest in that area, but I would love to just learn from experts like you, Debbie and Kobina. So I'm just asking, is there any internship opportunities with Clean Earth so that some of us that are willing to learn could apply to and probably learn from you, the experts?
Over to you, Debbie. That's your question.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, for that question. Yes. And again, for the purposes of time, we'll take at least more than one question. So we'll take minimum 3. If the hands are too many, we can make it 5 so that we address them together. If there is any other question, clarification, contribution, simply raise your hand or now you can unmute and then speak. Bye, Ifang. If I got your name correctly, please. You have the floor.
Okay. Good morning to everybody. Thank you so much, Kobina, for the insight. Hello, please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so my issue or challenge, I don't know whether it to be considered a question, a contribution. There's one observation I've made, and it's been realized that looking at Ghana, for instance, going very much into or looking very much into the local content bill, considering the mining sector, the extractive sector in general, that's the oil and gas sector, realize that constitutionally the policies are pushing more for local very. But during your presentation, I think there was a portion on, should I say, labor comfort or labor being considered as one of the most vital or important aspects, yes, which I think will fall under governance. Now you realize that the local content, there's a trend where the international organizations or companies that were existing in the system, or the few that are already in the system, pay quite well in terms of salary and wages, and even their standards in general, worker participation, working conditions and all that. But relative to the local content bill or the local content company, most of them do not meet that kind of standard or level that the international organizations were already exhibiting. So I presume that in such instances when local content bill is being pushed, that aspect should equally be looked at, not just local content in terms of the investors, but equally for the labor, to balance the books. Because currently, if you talk to most of the guys within the extractive industry, everybody would prefer to work for a foreign investor, a foreign company, than to work for a local company, because relatively the conditions are better, the salaries are better, and virtually we know that the local content is supposed to actually improve and help the nation, equally the labor. But it turns out to look like, it goes one way than, every party benefits. So I don't know, in this context, ESG, how would a specialist or a head of department within, the ESG, let's say the manager for ESG, how is he going to be able to blend in terms of, let's say, transition from an international organization into a local content organization? How is he going to blend it in when it comes to the conditions of service and the salaries for the personnel or the labor the organ during the transition?
Right. Thank you so much, Ba Ifang, for that question. Max Uma, your hand has been up for a while. Please, you can speak. We seem to have lost Max briefly. When he comes back, he would take the floor. Until then, James Deku, your hand is up for a question.
Okay, thank you very much, Kabina. I think that was very exciting. I really enjoy your session. I don't know. My question is basically looking at the interconnectedness with some of these environment and social risks. Normally, when you are trying to assess them, the way they are interconnected, they are connected to each other. You have difficulties drawing the lines and then the barriers. So I don't know if you can share with us, that is, if you are even agreeing that there is that interconnectedness, and if in your experience you encountered that, and what you did to navigate that particular complexity in terms of drawing the lines and knowing where the social risks ends and where the environmental bit should also be undertaken. And also secondly, if there are additional resources that the organizers can also make available for further readings, and in some of the areas, the laws and things that you were mentioning, I think that would also be very, very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, James, for that. Kobina, before you come in, Max is back online, so let's take him and then we give answers and we take the next round of questions. Max, please speak.
Okay. Good day, everyone. Thank you, Kobina and Deborah, for a wonderful presentation. It's just an addition to the first person that asked the question about ESG. Yes, sometimes last week I got a call from a distant colleague. Anyway, sorry, an environmental safeguard specialist for a World Bank assisted project here in Nigeria. I am a Nigerian. So I got a call from a distant colleague about ESG, and I quickly went online to get more information about this ESG. So I just said, okay, let me add to the first person that talked about ESG. If there's any opportunity that should be unveiled for us to get more educated about this ESG, I think that would be lovely. It's just a plea for this opportunity for us to get to know more about this ESG so we can apply to our work activities. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much, Max. And so, Kobina, the floor is yours for the ones directly related.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we thank the likes of Max for also the contributions that they did, and yes. So Debbie, you need to provide them with the opportunities. Yes, your friend would be waiting for you. But then again, I think that there are just so many companies who probably would have that opportunity to employ, right? But I think I see the ESG more as something beyond just the role you might be performing in an organization, because the ESG covers environment, social, and governance. Let me use this example. Maybe it might make sense. When I was at Cowbank, I joined Cowbank as an E&S specialist. I was managing risks associated with borrowing clients, which is usually where the interest is for the investors, for the DFIs and all of that. That's what I was recruited to manage. But then we do our ESG report at the end of the year. We do our sustainability report, and I would coordinate that. But I didn't have to be an expert in everything. So what would go into that report? For a financial institution, I was their greatest risk. Their number one risk is credit risk. I was managing E&S risks associated with credit facilities. That's what I meant by borrowing clients. So that was my mainstay. Beyond that, when we have to pull reports together for our financiers, I go to HR. There were people in HR who had been handling HR for 2 decades, who know that job better than I do. So, we report internally and externally. As in a typical ESG report, you are covering your internal footprint, you are covering your external footprint. So I didn't have to be managing everything. HR will give me information on how we are managing staff and contract, permanent and contract staff. They'll give me all that information. Then I process it into a section of my ESG report. I go to customer experience department or customer relations. They are dealing with customers. They have a customer system. I've forgotten the name of that system. That actually, gives you data on all of these things. So I go there, I pick that information. I see how many grievances had been recorded, how many have been resolved, how many are remain open, how many are closed. I get that information. Then I go to for a financial institution, financial inclusion was also a very important aspect of sustainability, right? Or under ESG, it was also very important. So I take financial inclusion record, and what most importantly, I get information also from what you usually call the corporate department or the general services. These are the guys who are handling the facilities, the banking halls, everything about the halls, the water, the lights, the ATM machines, how many of them have been put on solar. In fact, Cowbank had its head office entirely sitting on a solar plant, right? They were generating their own water. So we were able to do calculations as to how much savings we've done compared to if we were taking from Ghana Water or if we were taking from ECG. So you had people and these were engineers who are running general services. So I didn't have to be an expert everywhere. I only had to be good at what I was good at and then be able to coordinate the others and put the sustainability report together. So you see, I'm making that point because I think today you hear a lot of people make noise about ESG, but I don't know who can be a master in every component under ESG. So what I tell people, do what you do well. You are a chemist. You are going to be the wonderful guy who is going to be now giving us information on that angle. But broadly, also do show the interest in ESG. You are an HR practitioner. You are a facility manager. Everybody contributes to sustainability, but it is how you see it and how you're able to tell the story. So previously, Cowbank may have been generating the figures. They had the data, but they were not speaking sustainability. Now I can use their data and everything because really at the end of the day, it is the work that has to be done. And I've seen too many people talk about ESG, but they excuse me to say, when I drill down, I don't know what substance they bring to the discussion, right? So yes, we learn, and having worked with a lot of these departments, you learn a few things from all of them, but it doesn't make you an expert in everything. But your ability to coordinate and put an ESG report together should not be restricted to your role in a particular job. You should be able to expand and do other things, right? So I'm saying that even where there are no opportunities, where you don't find an opportunity called ESG opportunity, connect what you are doing to ESG, and you will be the one. So in some institutions outside, they do sustainability science. They are the guys who are bringing the ideas, product design, so that we can reduce emissions. Some of us will only talk about the emissions. I can't do anything in terms of product design. I don't think I have the capabilities for that, but I can sing a nice story about it and you would like me. But the point is that there is somebody who is doing sustainability science who would put those words to action and actually help us achieve the result that we all seek. And those there are so many things to sustainability. Let me just leave it here. But as I said, if you don't find opportunity, build opportunity from what you are doing already. There was also this question. Let me do that quickly. Sorry for the time. So Deku's question had to do with how you manage, risks that appear to be interrelated. In fact, every risk is related. The only reason why sometimes we try to put them in boxes or put them in silos is just so we can systematically look at them. And the more you're able to break them apart, the more you're able to find a lot more, a lot more tailor-made mitigation solutions that help you address each risk. Because sometimes when you lump the risks together, even though they are related, it becomes difficult to find the various, mitigating measures that will help you deal exhaustively with them. So in any analysis or assessment, the more you're able to break down the impact, even though they might be related, the more you're able to find the issues and find the so let me just do an example, a short one. So you probably work in the food and beverages industry, and so for an F&B industry, your greatest impact is water. How are you managing processed water? How are you managing wastewater? Now you might, in a different industry, you might have a meter for all your water systems, and there might not be an issue. But for such a factory where your greatest issue is water consumption, what you do is that you have technical people, for instance, like your colleague, who will be able to tell us which aspects of the process must require independent metering. So in some of these industries, they have separate meters. Some online, in the gas industry, they have online picks, right? Pipeline inspection gauges and all of those things that help you to monitor various aspects of the processes, so that where there is a lot more use of water and a lot more waste of water, you're able to find specific solutions to that aspect. And so that's how come when you're assessing risks, the more you're able to break them apart, the more you're able to find more workable solutions to manage them. I think the others were contributions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for Kobina. Yes, you did justice to all of it. And so for ESG, like Kobina said, it's actually a lot of areas. And for those who are wondering, Clean Earth last month, we did an ESG comprehensive breakdown. The video is available on YouTube. You can reach out to us using the contacts that will show at the end of today's webinar. And then we would, of course, share the recording for that workshop with you. We have also taken notes, and we will definitely be reaching out to Kobina, especially in the World Bank, because we have realized that we need to train people, especially the private sector, in ESG, in sustainability if we have to. So we would be exploring avenues that the bank can support some of these initiatives so that we can
let me not burst your bubble. Let me not burst your bubble. Let me catch you. So when you come to the bank will not mind you, because as I said, we only deal with government. So anybody who is interested, if you are from Nigeria, from Ghana, there's a country partnership framework that is developed for every 4 to 5 years. We are currently doing a new one to replace what exists between the government of Ghana and the World Bank. We only operate on the country partnership framework. We only work with government institutions. Yes, there are projects where we work through government institutions, but the beneficiaries are private sector people. But where you want to work directly, you want to have a direct relationship, you have to go to IFC because they are the private sector wing of the bank. But just to say that IFC already is doing something. So currently they have an IESG program for Ghana. They usually would do in Kenya, do Nigeria, and come and do in Ghana. So I'm sure this is also being replicated, and I mean this probably has happened in Nigeria already. So they started with an ESRM program, and they give support to the Bank of Ghana, to the Banking Association, to academic institutions, to consultants. They trained them. They helped BOG come up with the sustainable banking principles that were launched in November 2019. So IFC is doing wonderful there. If you come to us, we will disappoint you. And so now they have what they call the integrated ESG program. And now they are working not just with the BOG, not just with the institutions. They are working with SEC, which is the Security Exchange Commission. They are working with the Ghana Stock Exchange. They are working with other financial sector players, and so that opportunity is as they are working with is it auditors or chartered? I've forgotten the name. The Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana, and all those guys. The relationship is already going on, and definitely will be happy to link you with IFC and not the World Bank. Thank you. I'm managing
Thank you.
expectations. I'm
Yes,
managing
that is
expectations.
at least we know would partner a public institution out to the bank while we engage.
Exactly.
Other, yeah, thank you so much. CleanEarth will, of course, offer some form of trainings as well. Again, we'll offer more to interested parties who would like to be trained in ESG. But for now, the very free one available is on YouTube that you can look at and then reach out to us for some form of consultation or advice if you need one. For concerning internships, yes, we open our doors sometimes for people to get in and then learn to use their skills, or we even build their skills to begin with. We currently have a program going on. We are running our graduate trainee program, but there is the consideration for virtual internships, which we may roll out before end of year. So Emmanuel and colleagues, you can look out for that when we announce if you can join, and then we build capacity virtually as well. So I saw a hand up, and so I have to quickly stop on CleanEarth and what we're doing. Justice Akoto, Mr. Akoto, if you are still on the call, you may please ask your question. We are running into the 11:30s, and we should be getting ready to wrap up.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Munia. Just a quick one for the DFI, because they are under resource. They have asked me to tell you, like we tell the people that if they go for their inspection, they should encourage and admonish the people to come to their office. They don't have presence everywhere like EPA, NPA. They are heavily under resource, but we need them. You need them. I see the ILO is doing something with the DFI to bring up. And anyway, the act is way too old. So they are revising the act. So once it's revised, I'm sure they'll get some flesh and some muscle, maybe they get some authority level, and you see them way forward. And in relation to the LI for the EPA 1652, with the new acts, they are also reviewing the LI. So I'm sure some changes will come up. Then, because some of the things they considered and what is ongoing now, they have to review that LI. There are some projects that are the scope and scale are way too small. However, the impact they generate, EPA don't have sight of them. So Deborah,
That's true.
and I get to see you. And Kobe, all the best.
Thank you, my Fidelity brothers.
Thank you so much for that. We told you that people who will assist us on call, at least we know the LI would go some review very soon. Eben Otu, please, your hand is up.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'd like to say thank you. Today you gave me an eye in very regular day of ENSS. Sometimes it looks, when you hear it, it looks very perfect. But I'm believing that with the kind of information you have given and the kind of perspectives you have given, I think I'm getting to relate to it. I'm getting to understand that it could be that. And I like the bit where you said that you don't have to be an expert in everything. All you have to do is be good at what you do and let the others. It's something I'm going to keep, and we are going to push to increase our knowledge. So I like practicing knowledge to everyone, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eben Otu. It is 11:34, and much as we would like to continue these discussions, perhaps we'll hold part 2 of this webinar so that Kobina can go in details for his remaining slides, and then we might have more room to hold a lot more discussions. So this is where we start working towards wrapping up today's webinar. Kobina, thank you so much. This should actually have been paid content, right? Thank you so much for availing yourself. The webinar has been rich. And for all of you that have been on this call until this point, we are grateful. We would like to, as part of housekeeping and as part of ensuring efficiency in follow-up webinars, would like to get your insights, your ideas on what may be improved in the next webinars. So you can see on your screens currently there are polls coming out. You just have to take or select any of an answer for us, and then we get to put the data together for subsequent webinars. Now, before we end today's session, I would like to let you know that CleanEarth has noted the concerns that came up. And so for participants of this webinar especially, we are putting ourselves out there to offer some form of premium services. The questions are many. Some do not even know where to start from. And so from today, we would open our doors for at least free 30-minute consultation. You can reach out to us at CleanEarth through sustainability@cleanearthside.com, or you can call a phone number +233 020 We would share the contact details in the chat as well if you need to reach out to us, and then we will let you have free 30-minute consultation. The other thing is that we also, for ENS management, the other thing is that we also developed a free 90-day checklist and a 12-month roadmap during the ESG webinar, and we are offering it again for participants, for companies, for practitioners who may want to have some form of a guide and direction on where to go if you want to handle or tackle ESG. You can get in touch with us again, and we'll make these documents available for you. And a bird just whispered to me that our free 30-minute consultation should include ESG. And so you can reach out. We'll offer you 30 minutes of our time at no charge at all to you to walk through what your issue is and potential entry points that you can take to understand some things. I see another comment that is asking whether we'll share the recording or not. That will be a discussion that will definitely come up soon on our social media handles. So I'd advise you to follow us on LinkedIn, is CleanEarth, on Facebook, CleanEarth Africa, Instagram, CleanEarth Africa, on X, it is CleanEarth Africa. And we would be putting up follow-up information from this webinar over there for all of us' benefit. I do not think we should end this webinar without hearing directly from our CEO who is on this call, though we saw a video from him. So Echo, if you are still there, you can say a word or two, and then we get ready to exit the webinar.
Well, Deborah, thank you very much. And Kobina, I really appreciate the rich conversation that you've had with us. I also want to commend everyone that has made time to spend the last almost an hour and 30 plus with us. As a company, we have all the capabilities to support you at any stage in your process, as Deborah mentioned. If it's a question around ESG, ESIA, impact broadly, if it's a question around water management, we are able to support you with that as well. So as much as possible, I will not take too much of your time and say thank you for spending your morning with us. Until the next time we have the next webinar, I look forward to having in-depth conversations on the sidelines with anyone who has any thoughts or questions, and happy to engage at that level. For those of you who have asked questions in the chat around work opportunities, as Deborah mentioned, please keep following us on our socials and look out for outreaches that we make on employment issues. Thank you very much, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Eko. Kobina, you can say something else. You can say some
Yes,
more.
my closing remarks. Just to say thank you. Some of us have a very bad attitude. So just want to say that thank you to my senior MOBA, Echo, for this opportunity. I know the Ogasco boys on the call will beat me up. As for the disco guys, I'll have to run away from them. But the point is that I know there are a lot of colleagues on the call. Most of these colleagues are senior to me, who already know most of these things. They know all these things we're talking about. So I do not take their time for granted, and I'm grateful that they all joined. For me, I'm happy to do the conversations. And of course, in the process, we can help the younger ones to learn the art of assessment itself. But I think that we've all had several experiences, and I'm happy to always have them on this call so they can always contribute. I think today I did a poor show managing time, so I didn't get most of them to talk, but I mean, if we were to have another time, I'm sure you get to benefit from the wisdom of experiences that they have. And I just want to say thank you to everybody on this call who made time for this and who already knew what we were going to discuss, but yet made time to be here so we can all share experiences. So thank you guys, thank you so much. Subsequently, we can look at them in buckets, right? And there are several things we can do. How financial institutions conduct ENS due diligence for different sectors, what they should look out for, what is material, what is not material, in terms of local requirements, what you would want to see on a permit list or on a permit register. There are some simple things that I think sometimes we gloss over, but could be very beneficial to everybody else. So thank you, and thank you all once again.
Thank you so much, Kobina. And I would like to let this be on record that Kobina did not poorly manage time. What happened was that the discussion so rich that in my opinion, we've not exhausted it. So you can take that from me. With permission from my CEO, I think Cleanet, we are promising that there would be a part 2 of this particular webinar, especially for us to exhaust the discussions. And then, of course, we do have a much more broken down sessions upcoming. So keep an eye out on our pages, keep an eye out on your emails, because for some we'll reach out to you through your emails, those we have already. And we will bring you updates. We will keep you up to speed on emerging issues in EN. Thank you all so much for joining us. And until next time, it is bye-bye from Cleanet. Take that back. Before that next time will happen, we'll have a next webinar next month, looking into details into water management, energy engineering, and energy solutions. So you want to keep an eye on us so that you get the information on time and you are able to join for a much more engaging session on water management systems and then energy integration. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye to you all. Please go and start chasing IFC. Thank you. I am managing unmet expectations from this call. Bye-bye.
That is true stakeholder engagement.
I know, right?
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Debbie.